Hello and welcome. I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Talk Thursday. Today we have President Benigno Aquino III, and we're sitting in Malacanang Palace. Mr. President, thank you for having Rappler
Thank
here.
you for having me.
The numbers, all your numbers, economics, the approval ratings, they are excellent. And I was just telling Ricky, if you had asked me a year ago if we could have been the third fastest growing economy globally, I would have been shocked. How much of this is by design, and I hope you'll pardon me, how much of it is luck? I mean, because of global economic conditions.
Well, I guess the by design aspect is we went back to the basics, and what I said spoke up earlier. Focus on the people. Government was set up, given the mandate by the people to serve the people. Okay. Now, we promised the business community basically a level playing field, and we are striving to really make it as level as possible.
Yes.
We're trying to minimize the red tape. We hope to be as transparent as possible in every dealing. We want to be consistent. Now, the Philippines has had so much potential, but unfortunately, it's always been potential. The lack of clarity in the rules, the changing policies, so on and so forth, produced that atmosphere where it was so much of a crapshoot for anybody wanting to invest.
Yes.
Now that the rules are clearer, I think they recognize all of the potentials we have in so many different fields, then it is but natural that they will come in and join us as we strive to make this country grow.
But you've also done something differently. And most governments will pump prime an economy top down, but you have something that's pump priming bottom up, the CCT. I mean, what is your strategic vision?
Pamana,
Yeah,
and so many others. No?
What's your vision for the Philippines? I mean, and how do you make this happen?
Perhaps I can go back to one of my earliest lessons when I first ran in Congress. We were in an informal settler community beside the railway line. And it has a funny name in Tagalog. It's called Calle Once. And I was wondering why it was Calle Once in several barangays. Turns out, Once, because of, the rails look like ones beside each other. So one woman approached me and said, whoever runs doesn't really affect our lives. No? We're poor when they're running. We're poor when they're sitting in their office. And we'll probably be poor once they leave office. And it really encapsulated to me why there would be a disconnect between the populace and their government. Now, we credit our victory to the people pushing us and supporting us. In fact, I was reading the book made by my sisters called, Sisters, I think, to document the entire experience of the campaign. And one section contains all of the campaign materials, and there's so much of them because everybody chipped in.
Yes.
There's no single design. It would be a nightmare for the branding people and all of that. But I think what gives us confidence is so long as the people are behind us, then we can really rock the boat entirely and change the status quo. So, and another lesson I keep on quoting is, my dad told me that, I asked him at the start of martial law, why is it if we're fighting for that which is right, why aren't there more people fighting for the right?
Correct.
And he said, the very first freedom that has to be won is freedom from hunger. When you're always concerned with where the next meal will come from, everything else becomes irrelevant. The freedom of speech, religion, etc., assembly.
Yes.
And so, I guess from just those comments, the key to ensuring that what is happening now continues is really empowering the people. That's why all of those investments in health, in education, in getting the consensus as often as possible, if not every time, making it, having the populace own to the changes that are happening in the community, as exemplified by Pamana, Kalahisid, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, that is the primary focus. No? How do we change the status quo that it affects everybody? That's why we keep on stressing inclusive growth.
Yes.
Now, although we do say we will provide maximize all of the opportunities for everybody, we cannot guarantee results. Some people will take advantage, and some people, by nature, will not. But we want to afford everybody that opportunity, and that transformation is from doing everything. There were so many people who did everything they could and really no advancement.
Yes.
We want to change that.
In your leadership, how would you define your leadership? I mean, how do you describe it? How do you lead?
Well, I'd like to think that I do it by consensus.
That's hard though, sir. I mean,
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if it is dictated to, then I think it already engenders its inability to become permanent. Whereas if it is consensus and everybody owns up to it,
yes.
no, then regardless of the personalities involved, there is that distinct possibility that it will continue. It may be more difficult to achieve it, no, but at the end of the day, the foundations are stronger.
When is the point where you say stop and then just make a decision?
There's a point where there are diametrically opposed advisors.
Yes.
And then that's when I say, and after several meetings, no, nobody's moving a bit. Then I tell them, okay, thank you for all of your inputs. This is the way I look at it, and this is where we'll go to. I haven't had too much call to impose on the members of the cabinet.
Is there been an issue where you have imposed?
None that come to mind right now, but I'm sure there were.
I'll ask them. Fighting corruption, you've made this the centerpiece, and it's quite synonymous with you. The Integrity Initiative SWS survey in 2012 showed a dramatic increase in trust in the office of the president in you. I mean, in 2009 it was negative 37%, and in 2012 it was positive 81%. And feeling is because in many ways you staked your entire presidency on the impeachment trial of former Chief Justice Renato Corona. Was there ever a time during that time period where you felt you would lose? Because you would have won, and you won a lot, you lost. You would have lost a lot.
Well, I think it would be dishonest for me to say that that was really one of the focal battles for changing the status quo.
Yeah.
And the status quo has benefited several vested interests who would be worried and would have the fear of the unknown. They were comfortable with the status quo, then you're going to change it.
Yes.
So there were instances that there were doubts. But at the end of the day, I really believe that the vast majority of our populace were fed up with the system that kept everybody, and when I say everybody, including the vested interests, down. You know, for instance, when I would explain it to some people are very comfortable with crony capitalism, I said, what does that benefit you? Or how does that benefit you? You can't compete. Now, you don't know how to compete.
Yes.
Therefore, when we do have to open up all of our doors, you will not be able to compete.
Yeah.
Then we're just delaying the inevitable that you will be swallowed up by the marketplace. And at the same time, all the inefficiencies are there. You know, you do not maximize your profits. You do not, and so on and so forth. But basically, how does anyone gain from the status quo?
Well, you've also made significant progress. Again, that same survey, 64% said there was a lot of corruption in 2009, and then it went down to 42% in 2012. But 42% is still a lot of corruption, right? So what are your next steps? How do you push it forward?
Well, we keep saying that it's not merely filing cases, building the cases, filing cases. That's just part of the function. At the end of the day, if you see the big fish being welcomed to the National Bilibid prison, then that sets the tone that things have changed. It's no longer true that if you steal enough, you will become a partner. And perhaps what we'd like to say is the greater the crime, the greater the punishment should be meted out. And otherwise, personally, I think a lot of the people who are with me are advocates for various causes.
Yes.
And we've sacrificed a lot. We've committed to all of these things with the end point that there has to be transformational change. Without transformational change, everything that we've struggled for and we just took our turn in the musical chairs. It would be really such a ridiculous endeavor.
My fingers crossed for transformation. What would be the point where you say there is transformational change?
There's so many things that we can point out. For instance, classrooms. What is the cost per classroom? It's about 700,000 single story per classroom. How much did they leave me with in terms of deficit? The figure is about 66,000 plus. So I'm not that good in math. But even just imagining how many zeros are involved.
Yes.
And the national budget is normally able to support something like about 8,300, 500 classrooms per year. So it will take beyond my presidency to address that shortage.
Yes.
Next year, Brother Armin promises us it's gone. All 66,800. How about textbooks? Textbooks, we were looking for technological solutions. The tablet, we're still working on it.
Yes.
Bring the price down, make it non-usable if used other than in school. Be able to correct errors right away. For
Yes.
example. But it's still a work in progress. In the meantime, Brother Armin promises by the end of this year, textbook ratio to student will be 1-to-1.
Yes.
You know, how about, you know, there are so many things that I said, this is impossible. Policemen, we
Yes.
expect them to be above, temptation. But then when you look at the situation, they're given survival salaries, and barely surviving. In the Metro Manila and other urban areas, rental for the residences is between 3,000 to 5,000, roughly about a third
Yes.
of their, I'm made to understand, gross pay. Then everything else, will have to suffice.
Yes.
And some of them would have had to shell out to just get enlisted.
Yes.
Okay. Now we had surpluses, we had savings, significant savings that empowered me to set aside about 4.2 billion last year to produce the 20,000 plus houses, and the scheme is government subsidizes to the tune of about 35,000 for 200,000 cost. Well, they pay 200 pesos and it balloons eventually after 25 years to 1,000 pesos. Still a third of what they're paying now, even at the lowest point.
Yes.
Then we can tell them, effectively, you have gotten 2,800 per month in additional income. Perhaps you should be able to resist a lot more temptation.
What is the most important? You keep so many of these facts in your head. I mean, what is the most important thing that you're looking at that is a sign for you of progress?
It's really the people when I see them. When they meet you with smiles, when they're so energetic, when they greet you, when they shake your hands, when they thank you. But really just, I guess it's really the hustle and bustle, the smiles that they demonstrate, as opposed to being, downcast looking. The only ambition was to leave the country, etc. Now it's different. Now you have I have a lot of anecdotal stories of
Yes.
people coming back, and some of them are not young.
Yes.
They're 40s, 50s. They pick up, they uproot themselves from where they are and relatively comfortable,
Yes.
and they want to come back. Just last night I was reading this article. It's a country in Europe, so as to be careful of diplomatic niceties, that had the population, had issues with decreasing population. So they invited people who had the same mother tongue to go and immigrate to their country. That was a lot of them came in 2007. Now that country is distressed, a lot of these people are going back to their original countries because the growth is in the original countries, and they find more gainful employment back home. So I really would want to see that as our next problem.
Bring the Filipinos home.
The 10 million coming back home, roughly, the
Fantastic.
doubles. No, but it's a work in progress.
It means you have to have enough jobs for them to come back to.
We have something in the neighborhood of about, so the figure changes because it's increasing, but roughly about between 50,000 to 80,000 per month
Yes.
of firms who are looking for workers that they cannot fill. It's in a website called PhilJobNet.
I have it. I have that. Mr. President, your affinity with people, you mentioned the people right away. It also can be seen as, part of your weakness. That some people say that you protect your friends, that, it's not quite as impartial as the leader of the nation should be. How do you respond to that?
Let's talk about specifics. Rico Puno.
Rico Puno.
Exactly what is he being accused of, for instance, the Manila hostage crisis.
Yes.
He performed all of the roles that I asked of him, and the major issue had to deal with somebody who was given a set of orders, who said yes sir, and proceeded to do something else.
And also,
But that wasn't Rico Puno. No? And the person who I tasked to monitor this other officer didn't perform as good a job of supervising him as was expected. Remember, this was like a month into office, more or less.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of the latest issue with regards to securing the documents with Jesse Robredo's
Yes.
offices,